messages you would be delivering, and combining that with the information we found during our first study, where we checked for your common issues. That's how we did that.
Thank you. So let's thank Maximilian, and we move on to clap. Great. We'll move on to the panel session. So let me just pass this to you first. So maybe I'll kick off with one question or two. Depends on whether we see any questions in the room to all the authors. But I'd like to actually ask. This is such a mixture of talks. And I really love to see that there's a lot of variety of analysis that actually was done in your studies. One thing though that I want to pick up is, look, you did really nice reporting of negative results. And I think that's sometimes as a researcher is a hard thing to face, when you say, okay, you like one part of the results, but the other part, should I report it? But you did report it, and you actually report it in a constructive way. And any guidelines, any sort of insight or in that experience on how you actually then turn it into an insight that could be useful for the others to learn from. And I wonder if anyone else also like to share, perhaps there are limitations in the negative results that you have in your paper, but you just didn't have time to talk about it. So yeah, please.
Yeah, so I think like from a meta level, I think it's something that I really like and needs to be a little bit more room for in the community is presenting negative results, because often when you're writing up like a limitation section, it feels like you're poking holes in your own paper and giving fuel to your reviewers to find holes. But I don't know if it's just like a small attitude shift that can change that would make that a bit nicer. But I usually do try to find ways, but I think you have to write it carefully, that it's like also a finding instead of a hole. And it kind of mostly depends on the framing, I guess.
Or it could also be, right, it's really bad that you should never do it again, right?
Right, that's also a really important finding.
Anyone else want to add to that on negative results?
I will just say it's fairly common with sort of design implications, right? So kind of like you mentioned, just making sure that you delineate, right, what, do maybe further thematic analysis or sort of identify these themes that sort of come out for the future, which is fairly common in CHI, I think, as well, and would be great to see more of in this community too.
Anyone wants to add?
Just as a follow-up, I actually also think it's a little bit harder to do in more systems-y papers because your system is the contribution, so then having like negative results of your own system then becomes, I think, more difficult to present, whereas like we didn't have a systems contribution, it was more of like an interaction thing, so then like finding negative interactions is I think easier to present. Not that it's like, you should probably still also present it for a systems paper, but I think it's just a bit harder.
Rajesh, you're shaking your hand. You're a system person. I don't want to rant. No, go ahead.
No, I don't want to rant. I mean, negative results, every program committee I've been on always says they love negative results. Very few of them take papers with negative results. So there's a difference between what we say we want and what we actually will take. Right.
That's great. Well, one thing to actually wonder, sometimes even machine learning-y or analytics kind of negative results, it's also sometimes to do like the way you pick and choose the models that is right. Or maybe, there are certain tasks or certain detection that either activity or certain behavior, they're not working really well yet. So, okay, maybe that's future work. Let's just report this part. I wonder if it should be part of our practice potentially to really dig in and say, no, actually the next bit that we actually should be comprehensive about is this thing. And wonder what's your approach on that? Should we report even all the inaccurate results, really low bar?
I think this is an interesting discussion. I think as advisors as well, I think it's really important when we discuss this with our students too, right? Because very often they do get sort of these negative results, and we are sort of guiding them to necessarily only report maybe the best evaluation metric. So for example, false positives might be not as great as the false negatives, so maybe we can change the story. And it's challenging, right? I mean, I do agree that we do need a little bit more transparency. At the same time, I think it needs to be tastefully done. So, Gregory. Great.
So I'd like you all to reflect on what's the next best community for your work to be reported to, and how far away do you think your research is from being acceptable to that community? For example, Nabil, you were looking at smoking cessation. Rajesh, you were looking at sleep behavior. You were looking at ADHD. Actually, you were looking at hyperactivity, not ADHD, but that's a different rant. So I'd like you to just talk about, where else would you publish this and how far away are you?
Yeah, great question, Gregory. And I love this, right? Because it's sort of like we need to be taking our technology to the next level. And so for me, when it comes to, and for us and my co-authors, when it comes to the work we're doing with smoking cessation, we're really looking into the nicotine dependency community, right, and the tobacco research community. So here, now they're used to using, let's say, Crest Pocket as a device. Now, can we switch and show that SmokeMon is non-inferior, let's say, to Crest Pocket when it comes to a study with, smokers that are planning to quit, right? So here we did a study with, an in-lab study and an in-wild study, right, of smokers, but they didn't necessarily want to quit yet, right, or were planning to quit. So this is next on our list. We're very excited about it, so thanks.
Okay. For mine, it would be either college administrators or the medical side, right, especially psychiatry. And in fact, one of my last co-author on the paper is actually a doctor of medicine. So convincing the medical community that computer scientists have something to offer them, not easy, but making inroads. Definitely making inroads. Gregory knows how hard it is. They think that they think we're going to kill people, that we're not scientific. So it's actually tricky, but we have to, right?
So for my work, I think, of course, like ADHD detection through wearables, we want to deploy the system and do some rigorous evaluation with clinicians and to see the impact of the deployment. At the same time, I'm also interested in, also this I think relates to the previous question, how we can address the error of machine learning. Especially for my case, we used parents as a kind of data provider, but still that way is not optimal. We ask them to help the machine learning model to understand the context. So I'm interested in how such human in the loop might help us to move forward to mitigate the error of the machine learning model. And that can be an HCI topic, but also like how we can leverage such human prompt, like human advice on the machine learning model is a kind of machine learning algorithm topic. So I'm interested in that too.
Thanks for good talks, everyone. And I want to actually add on to what you have with people, presenters with health indications of technology. So coming from activity recognition background, I'm moving into biomedical informatics. And more I work with clinicians as a technician, we will really have to consider how technology can be actually integrated into a daily clinical practices, helping clinical providers as well as patients. And in that sense, some of my recent papers were finding a lot of biases in the models. You're trying to collect the data set with balanced demographics, but once you train the model, the fairness is not there. And what I see a lot of this tech and health domain in UbiComp, we normally report the performance and technical analysis of the models and data, but it doesn't really have much indications and discussions of fairness of data set. And I do think that's because when we start any of the health-related project, we first look into performance and robustness of model, not collecting data so much with the mindset of fairness and biases. So how do you think we can really push community forward to include those fairness and bias analysis in the activity recognitions or health analysis as a community?
That's a very interesting question. by and large, almost all our data sets are trained on students, and that itself is a huge fairness and bias issue, right? I mean, every time I go talk to doctors, they say, yeah, it works with students, but students are healthy. The people we see are not, right? How would it work with that? So, yeah, you ask a very important question, but you need to be able to show how, or at least have a story for why you believe it will still work, and then you need their help to get to a larger community, right? Because on our side, getting the larger community is actually not easy, right? But I do agree, it is an important question. We do have to worry that our data sets are constrained by the group we look at, and they are, in many cases, they're overfitted as well. The other rant I have is that I see so many papers that use deep learning models that are completely overfitted, right? And I know that, and we know that, but we still accept them anyway. Yep.
This is a great question. We discuss it a lot, and I don't know if others want to speak. I don't want to hog it. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I feel like, for example, if I'm working on like audio and speech relevant stuff, this is especially an issue because, for example, for audio stuff, it's not like vision and maybe for example, like text. So where like a large scale data set are already available online. For audio speech, it is especially an issue because the largest data set for now is like audio set. But audio set is just a data set extracted from YouTube videos. And it's not a very good generalization of like real world users, real world scenarios. And this is a challenge I think that has been faced in many like audio processing and audio machine learning community here. So yeah, so basically I think the steps we have right now is still focus on like human in the loop or maybe like to collect data from real world, like user studies, like the one that we have in our paper. But yeah, I think this is something that we need to think about and yeah, maybe it's a real challenge. I'm not sure if Gen AI in the future would be a like, possible solution to actually generate more human-like data, like to maybe to better like simulate user behaviors. But yeah, I agree this is a challenge. Yeah.
It is a really important question, and I just want to say something real quick. Initially, when we do develop sort of new systems, right, there's an accuracy issue, right? After accuracy, we tend to go into feasibility, acceptability with the community in question. And then when we design interventions, we look at effectiveness. So there's typically phases and stages of research, right? And it's a great, important question, because if we say our system is accurate, right, but it's tested only on students and not really the individuals it's intended to help, or right, then it becomes an issue, right? So I think in our community, it's great to sort of have a first paper that says, you know, there's promise in this system, there's promise in this technology, but yes, we do need to follow up with one that actually tests accuracy across a wide range of, you know, demographics. And you don't necessarily need to do all ranges of demographics, right? It depends on whether there's, you know, you do the rigor in the research and you see if there's precedent, right, in whether sex is an important variable or race, or, you know, especially as when it comes to that particular behavior or problem you're tackling. So.
Thank you. I just want to ask you one final question, and then we have to quickly move to the posters because our session time is actually ending. You all presented really cool work, and actually at the end of the day, the thread among the you know, recognizing behavior, activities, or health is at the end of the day you want to be able to improve someone's quality of life and whoever that end user is, right? Now, so my question is, think about the rest of your peer here. What sort of ideas you've taken away from their work that you potentially could use in your next work? Is it maybe like, oh, actually, Rajesh might be thinking I could maybe do smoke detection using Wi-Fi, or you might be thinking, oh, I could use that modality. So just go from you until here. I'd like you to just quickly, just a quick 1 minute.
I'd say one of my main takeaways is that not everything needs to be wearable. And as much as we love wearables, hiding the whole technology entirely is something we should consider.
I was just inspired by listening to some of the talks, and you know, I don't have any clear ideas now because it takes me a while, but just trying to figure out, you know, how to use HMDs or how to try to add more design to some of the stuff we do. It's just trickling through, and it will converge eventually. But
Ooh, that's a great question. As I was listening, related to a lot of the research we do, I'm very interested in sleep, right? Because that's sort of a lifestyle habit and behavior. and also social presence, right, and social interaction. So to me, that's really critical when it comes to looking at contextual factors and how that impacts one's health. Also engagement, but anyways.
Yeah, so I actually have like a completely separate project on sleep, so I want to talk to you about that afterwards, but unrelated. But I think like for sure there's an obvious connection between our talks that it's like the detection system and the communication system, and I think both sides of those need to work in order for the system to actually be useful for the end user. So I think like combining those approaches and taking the next step is really important. Yeah.
Yes, I'm also very inspired by the sleep work, and my project was to use more wearable sensor to achieve some sort of like unobtrusiveness of tracking human behavior. But that one is more than that. So there's a trade-off. Like how can we get the context behind that? So I wanna investigate more than that trade-off.
So one of the challenges we faced with our real-world deployment was detecting conversations that you're having with someone versus maybe the conversations that are happening around you. Like if you're in a bar in this conference, so maybe thermal sensing to really detect that you're talking to someone like right in front of you. That may be something we explore in the future. Not sure how, but it's an idea.
Yeah, I think probably the deeper brainstorm is needed for me to actually come out with some more ideas here. But one immediate idea I can think of is probably for sleeping monitoring. Audio has been explored, for example, for snoring detection. I know, there's been work for that, and that's one thing I can think of. And
I think for our work, we focus on more about the method. So maybe we can focus on more in the future about testing the different methods and maybe collect more data to test the accuracy, or maybe even use machine learning or deep learning model to train the data and predict using more features.
Okay, great. Let's thank all the authors and speakers here. And please, if you have 5 minutes just to walk to the end of the room, there are some posters. Talk to some of the poster presenters as well before you leave and mingle for lunch. So thank you.
it's the first time to see this.